The 2025 Canadian Grand Prix was a turning point. However, not in the way we had hoped. Instead of presenting a solid team with star drivers Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, Ferrari revealed something far more alarming: a disjointed team, misaligned strategies, and two top drivers openly questioning the direction of the grand project they had believed in. When internal radio recordings of the two drivers were leaked, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a defeat on the track, it was a stark warning of an impending collapse. What did the recordings say, and why did they become such a big deal? Let's take a closer look, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When Lewis Hamilton was announced as joining Ferrari, the world greeted it as the start of a new era, a final chance for the seven-time world champion to make history by bringing Ferrari back to glory. Now, however, less than halfway through the season, Hamilton looks more like a prisoner in a failed project than a hero who will save the red team. During the Canadian race, his frustration was palpable over the radio. "Why is this car so slow?" It wasn't rhetorical. It was the cry of a legendary driver left to fend for himself. Shortly after, Hamilton sounded like he was on the verge of giving up. "Out of power. Out of pace, boys." When told he was 25 seconds behind, Hamilton replied in a piercing tone, "Where did I lose 25 seconds?" He sounded shocked, angry, and confused. He had no idea what his team was doing. He then complained about a problem with the braking system. "I've got no rear. The brake pedal is getting low. I can't stop the car." However, his engineer's response made the Tifosi's blood boil. "It's quite balanced." It almost sounded sarcastic because, at a time when Hamilton was on the verge of losing control, the team responded with complete ignorance or indifference. While Lewis Hamilton struggled with an uncontrollable car, Charles Leclerc faced a different kind of nightmare: confusing team strategy, late communication, and key decisions made without his involvement. Amid the chaos of the race, Ferrari suddenly asked Leclerc to switch to Plan B. However, Leclerc, who was clearly frustrated, responded with unusual assertiveness: "I think Plan C." It was not just a suggestion, but also a subtle form of resistance. It was a signal that he was no longer willing to be a passive executor of a strategy that had consistently failed. Shortly after, Leclerc was called into the pits without any clear warning. Surprised, he immediately asked, "Why did we box?" The team's response was quick but cold: "We're on Plan B." However, Leclerc did not let the decision pass him by. In a disappointed and confused tone, he said, "Yeah, but I just told you the tires were fine." As if to say, "Why didn't you listen to me?" The climax came a few moments later when he said 6 words that echoed throughout the paddock: "I don't understand this choice." It was not just an expression of momentary frustration. It was a form of brutal honesty, an admission that his trust in the system he had defended, the team he had hoped would make him a world champion, was crumbling. Charles Leclerc was no longer a young driver waiting patiently for his moment to shine. He was now a leader who felt abandoned by his team's decisions. His patience was wearing thin. What was heard on the radio was just the tip of the iceberg, a minor explosion that revealed a significant crack in Ferrari's foundation. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere in the red team's garage was like an isolation chamber: silent, cold, and tense. A team member who requested anonymity described it as an eerie silence, as if the entire garage had lost its life. There were no celebrations or constructive evaluations, only blank stares, slumped shoulders, and brief, awkward conversations that felt more like formality than team spirit. In that nearly frozen atmosphere, Lewis Hamilton seemed out of place. He sat in the corner of the paddock with his helmet still on, staring at the floor without saying a word. When he finally stood up and stepped out, he remained silent. All that remained was the expression of a man haunted by big questions. Is this the team I envisioned? Is this the right path? The look in his eyes was no longer anger, but rather a painful doubt. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc stared blankly at the track from the pit wall, his body nearly frozen in place. Several journalists tried to approach him, but he didn't respond. Not even a nod. He just sat there, as if swallowing back all the hopes that had just been slammed against the wall of reality. For Leclerc, this was more than just a failed race. It was a bitter reminder that his grandiose dream of bringing Ferrari back to the top has continually been thwarted by a crippled structure, indecisive strategies, and increasingly disoriented leadership. This all points to one undeniable fact: Ferrari is not just losing on the track, it is collapsing from within. Its leaders, far from being guideposts, look like confused passengers on a ship that has lost its compass. Hamilton and Leclerc are two of the top 5 drivers in the world right now. Both have the ability, speed, and determination to become world champions. They are not just drivers, they are icons, leaders, and symbols of hope for millions of fans. However, all of these advantages seem wasted in the hands of a team that has failed to establish a solid foundation. It's ironic because Ferrari's main goal in recruiting Hamilton was to start a new era, an era of glory based on internal stability, good strategy, and strong chemistry in the garage. Hamilton was expected to lead a technical and mental revolution and mentor Leclerc, who has long been touted as Ferrari's future. However, the reality is the opposite. The two star drivers now appear frustrated and confused. They are beginning to lose faith in the team's strategy and Ferrari's long-term vision. In the brutal and competitive world of Formula One, a rift between a driver and the pit wall is more than just a communication problem. It is an early warning sign of greater destruction to come. Now, Ferrari is on the brink with 2 world-class drivers, yet little control over the direction of the team. The Canadian Grand Prix was more than just a bad weekend. It was a loud alarm signaling that serious cracks were forming in Ferrari's entire internal structure. The chaos captured on the team's radio was no longer just a technical incident. It was clear evidence that the team's coordination, trust, and leadership were on the verge of collapse. Now, it was out in the open. The leaked radio conversations made Ferrari's internal disgrace public knowledge, from disillusioned fans to rivals who sensed weakness to the restless executive board at Maranello. The public knew. The rivals knew. More importantly, Ferrari's board of directors could no longer turn a blind eye. If they didn't act quickly and decisively, it would mean more than just missing an opportunity to win the World Championship. It could lead to the collapse of their most ambitious and expensive project in 2 decades, an era that was supposed to be led by Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, but is now teetering on the brink of failure. Ferrari had 2 incredible drivers, a competitive car, and almost limitless financial resources. However, none of that would be enough if they failed to maintain a unified direction and vision behind the pit wall. Without strong leadership and solid communication, their technical prowess and talent would be wasted. Montreal wasn't just a bad weekend, it was a warning that the team's foundations were cracking. If Ferrari has any hope of salvaging the 2025 season and preserving the future of the Hamilton-Leclerc superstar duo, the team must act now. Not tomorrow. Not when the season is over. Now is the time, while the crisis is still under control, before it spirals into total disaster. Now is the time for Ferrari to act. If they keep delaying and letting this chaos unfold without direction, history won't record the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix as a moment of revival. Rather, it will be remembered as a tragic turning point, the beginning of the collapse of the most ambitious project in modern Formula One history. The project was built on high hopes, big money, and big names, but it will end up as a bitter lesson in how a legend can crumble from the inside. Who is really driving this team's strategy? Do Hamilton and Leclerc still believe in this project? And if not, who will go first? Let us know in the comments below.